Hello everyone, welcome to another stream. Today we are doing the community challenge in automation and BeamNG, and this time the community challenge is the 1985 Premium GT challenge. So we have a total of, let's see, 18 submissions this time. Yeah, it looks like a very good number of entries. I'm very happy about everyone who decided to submit a car. I'm currently trying to fire up automation. Come on, let's go. It'll take a second, but it'll be up soon, I'm sure. So, how is everyone doing? Okay, there it is. So, there are apparently a couple of cars that failed importing. I'm just gonna import without mods. Sorry for not contacting the guys who made these cars earlier. I really didn't have time earlier. I'm sorry. I was not able to look into the cars beforehand. Hey Traffic, by the way, as you can see, I did get your car before you ask. Okay, so before we get into the submissions, first of all, here's my own car. You have seen it in the thumbnail, but I briefly want to go over what it has and what it does. Hey Sebesseg, how's it going? And this has whoa, okay, let me change something real quick on my monitor. I was still on the sort of eye-saving mode for working from home. And that looks terrible in the game. There we go, much better. Okay. So this is my car. You've seen it in the thumbnail. It's got a 4.6 liter V8, making 305 horsepower. It does 0 to 60 in 5.7. It's got a score of 177.1, although I imagine we're gonna see cars that are in like the 230s, 240s even. And here is the car that 3 people can win in this community challenge. The car, well, the prize, a De Tomaso Longchamp. Now, I'm pretty sure that most of you probably never heard of this car. And it is made by the same factory that made the De Tomaso Pantera, which you may have heard of. And it was a 2-door luxury GT car. It had a 4.8 liter Ford Windsor V8. No, sorry, the Ford Cleveland V8. And here's where the problem starts. Because it had different iterations, and it was very difficult to find what exact version was in this car in 1985, because I found varying information on different internet sources. The one that I found on the most informative source was quoting 290 horsepower and 441 newton meters. We're close to that. The 290 horsepower was in fact at 5200 RPM, which is why I did it this way. There is a little bit of valve float, but De Tomaso revved the engine higher than it otherwise would, so you can expect some valve float as a result of that. In real life, it's 1985 after all, and it's a pushrod engine. And yeah, I think it's a very cool car. By the way, if you probably never heard of the Maserati Kia Lamy either, but if you did, it's actually based on this car, so this came first. And De Tomaso had actually purchased Maserati in the early 70s. Fun fact. Anyway, 290 horsepower. It comes with a 5-speed manual or a 3-speed automatic. Most people in real life chose the automatic, but 3 speeds in automation are terrible. It came on 225mm sport tires with 15-inch magnesium rims. It did actually have those. Also, it had vented discs up front and solid discs on the rear. It had, well, the only reason I did this and plus 13 quality here because the real car had a top speed of 240 kilometers an hour, and I couldn't otherwise get that. So, yeah, okay. But then again, this had handmade interior by De Tomaso. Very nice interior for the time. It was heavy. It was over 1700. I couldn't even get that with luxury cassette, and I didn't want to bloat it either, especially because that would have made it slower than the real car. It did have power steering. I could not find sources confirming or denying whether it had ABS. It may have had it. It may have not had it. I couldn't find that information. I'm sorry. But either way, if you do find that information, it's a simple click in automation. So, it didn't have the fanciest suspension out there, but it did. It was a comfortable GT car as opposed to a road racer. Okay, now this is the prize. This is what you can win, and again there are 3 categories. There are 3 categories to win: best looking, highest score in GT Premium, and the best driving car in BeamNG. Interestingly enough, this only scores 125 in GT Premium, so it's... I imagine we might even see cars with double that score in that category. But let's get started. So, in alphabetical order, the Apogee. This was built by Colonel Sanders. So the first thing that we can easily, because I made a little chart on the side. Whoa, 257.1. What did I tell you? We're gonna see cars with double the score of the De Tomaso. So 257.1. I think that's already gonna be a top contender. 257.1. Okay. Looks. It does have pop-up headlights, but I'm generally not the biggest fan of these sort of inserted headlights on, like, the front is very rounded on this body, and so these very square and angular headlights that are also set inwards, I feel like they don't suit this body very well. I don't like it. The rear end is too futuristic. This definitely looks like early 2000s-esque, not 1985. So unfortunately, I can't give this a super high a score in the design. For a 1985 GT car, I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 10. For a 1990s Japanese sports car, it would probably be for a late 90s Japanese sports car, it would probably be like an 8 out of 10. Okay. Yeah, it is indeed a very impressive car. It only gets 6.5 mpg, but we don't care about that here. Next up, the Argon GDP V10 by Driver 2900. .356 horsepower from a 4.5 liter V10. 156.9 score here. So that's 100 score less than the last car. Looks-wise, I do like it better. But, I mean, it's nice that this has a two-tone paint job, but the chosen color, especially the main color, the bright green, I feel like that's a little too bright. It's not very subtle. And also this is, the rear end is kind of plain. It's overall not a bad design. But yeah, also the new paint setup might mess up some paint jobs. Yeah, I've noticed that too. But anyway, I'm gonna ignore those anyway because every car is gonna have that. But overall, the looks of this, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. It's not bad, but I figure you can probably do a lot better. Okay. Durant runabout, which one? I'm gonna delete one. The okay, so this one is actually too expensive, so I gotta go with the GTO V12. Damn, the devs having to put out an update when Tom's doing a challenge. Yeah. It's not like I'm trying to do a challenge every week, so, you know, it's... Okay, 414 horsepower from a 3.8 liter twin-turbo V12. That gives this car 258.1 points. Damn. Okay, now that is very impressive. Looks, I feel like this is certainly the best looking so far. I like the front end, it's very nice. I like the black sort of pinstripe across the side as well. Very nice. All in all, I feel like this could use just a little bit of chrome. Like, for example, here on the rear bumpers. Like a nice little chrome strip here. And then mirrored on here as well. Would be nice. And the number plate in between or something like that. But other than that, I feel like this is a very solid design. It looks very good, in my opinion. Yeah, the pink rim should be chrome. Yeah. I can fix that real quick. Paint. Wheels. What the fuck? Let's do that. What are all these colors? I don't know. Anyway, a very solid design. I like it a lot. And I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. You know what? No, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. The only thing that is missing is a little bit of chrome trim. For example, in place of these vents, I would put a little bit of chrome here, and also here on like basically for the length of the taillights, just one little chrome strip on each side and then a number plane in between. I think then it would probably get a perfect 10 out of 10, but it is a very, very good design. I like it. We have the Crockett GTP V16, which is by John French. This has an 8.5 liter V16 with 363 horsepower. It's using the sort of old school jack body, I guess. There is something I want to mention though about this user, John French. Sorry. I realized that we are getting occasionally new users on the Discord as well, and I very much appreciate that. However, I don't know, for some reason, with this particular user, and the time that this entry came in, just after another user's name, you probably know who you are, and using a very similar profile picture, does make me question a little bit whether or not this is an actual new user, like as opposed to, well, a new player, I should say. Whether or not this is actually a new player or just, you know, someone trying to have two chances. I don't know. 216.2 points anyway. Where is it? 216.2. Looks wise, it's pretty nice and shiny, very chromey. Looks very American. Definitely looks very American. Looks very authentic though for an American 80s car. And I know someone who is very good at that as well. I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10 because I feel like it looks too much like sort of like, I don't know, it looks very nice and American, and I have nothing against that, but especially the front end kind of reminds me of what yeah, it's a little dated. And it kind of reminds me of what a grandpa would drive back then. Like if you see this in your rear view mirror, you're like, okay, yeah, move aside, old grandpa. I don't know. This sort of looks like that kind of car. So this is why it looks good. It just doesn't have the sort of sleek look of a GT car. So that's why I'm only giving this a 7. Otherwise, it would be higher. Looks like your car. Okay. Next up, the Condor LX2000. That was by Zaki654, sorry. It's got a 6.5 liter V12 with 351 horsepower, and it looks very Japanese. It scores 217.3, which is very respectable. Kind of weird how it looks sort of Japanese when the body is clearly sort of like a Mustang Challenger sort of mix-up. The rear end is a little too plain for my taste. For this sort of car, you really do want some more details, some more trims, some, you know... It's a little too simple in my opinion. And the rims are sort of like late 90s, early 2000s BBS style rims. I'm gonna go with that. And then there's no more chrome. There's no more chrome preset, is there? Hey Cash733525, thanks very much for following the stream. I appreciate it. Yeah. I'm gonna give this sadly a 4 out of 10. Also, they made it so you can't see the price here anymore. I was looking, maybe did they move it up here? No, like you just cannot see the price here anymore in the market tab, and that is really, really annoying. Or is it here in the summary? No, it isn't. Anyway. You have to make a Chrome option. No, click the gear on the side. Okay. Then you can switch out into Chrome. And yeah, I mean... I could do that, but at the same time, for right now, it doesn't really matter. Next up is the Lebelge. This one was sent in by Brisket, as always. AKA, I think, Scrunts, as he calls himself here on Twitch. 481 horsepower from a 5-liter twin turbo, was it V10? First up, the scoring, 184.8. Where are you? There you are. 184.8. And the looks, I do also think it looks more like mid-90s-ish. Not bad by any means, but maybe not quite error correct. The taillights are more 80s-ish, and there is some chrome within them as well. I feel like the side is a little bit plain as well. I'm gonna give this a 6 out of 10 because it's not bad. It really isn't bad, but maybe a little bit too ahead of its time. Yeah, the rear end is very much adequate for 1985, that's for sure. Next up, the Aurora GT. And this was by, let's see. Did I not write? Oh yeah, this was by Ronnie1 on Discord. Okay, another Japanese-looking car. 172.4 on the GT Premium category. I don't like this this look. I have to say, I think the front end is like the headlights are too small and angular, and this sort of makes it look like it's trying to be a sort of Viper-ish, but Like if you look at it from here, it kind of almost looks like a second-gen Viper-ish face, but just, you know, too angular, and also the headlights are too modern, and the rear end is a little plain and sort of looks Mitsubishi-esque with a BMW tail. I don't know. This does not look to me like a 1985 premium GT car. Like if you see this on the street, would you think, oh, that's a nice, expensive, you know, elegant car? I don't think that would be the first impression you'd get on this. This sort of looks more like, you know, someone took what may have been a nice coupe at one point, and then sort of swapped out the hood for a black one, and you know, put these sort of vents on there where only exhausts used to be. I don't know. It kind of looks like a modified car, and for that reason, I'm only gonna give this a 3 out of 10. Next up, the Marquez Aviator. This one was sent in by Noob Enthusiasta, who is usually pretty good in these challenges. So this is a 6-liter V16 with 345 horsepower. It scores 228.9. The headlights are barely visible when you know the hood is this color, but they are visible indeed, and this sort of looks Mercedes-esque. Yeah, it's like the front end certainly has Mercedes vibes to it, but the overall shape is very American-ish, very large. I feel like we may have seen this rear end before. Yeah, I know the pink is all chrome. I feel like we may have seen this rear end before, haven't we? Or very similar, at least. It's good. This has a little bit more detail, a little bit more elegant flair to it, I think, with these extra chrome bits and the quad exhausts. Overall, I think that this probably deserves like a 7 out of 10. It looks good. Yep, the update has messed up the pre-update colors. I'm gonna give this, looks-wise, I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10. It's good. Next up, the Phantom Blue 2. That one was by Logoris. 350 horsepower from a 6.6 liter V16 twin turbo, actually. Okay. This has 191.9. And as far as looks go, this does look like an 80s car with these sort of... I mean, these are also the sort of headlights you get on a 300ZX or a Lamborghini Diablo, which, you know, fun fact, if you didn't know. Can you not? Like... okay, so that's just a limitation of this body then. A fun fact, the Diablo had the headlights from an actual 300ZX. The taillights do look a little bit too modern, and I think the diffuser is fine, but maybe a little too much for this kind of car. It looks more like it's trying to be a sort of Porsche sports coupe sort of competitor. It doesn't have any sort of chrome or extra details to it on the side, or well, besides the hood scoop, on anything on the front, or so it's not the most fleshed out design. It gets some of the basics right, but a lot of the, like, again, there's just some detail missing in my opinion. So this gets a 6 out of 10. Yeah, they exported all of everyone's color options. Apparently, that's now in the game. That's a thing now, so you can put somebody else's colors onto the car if they send it over to you. Next up is the Storm Cars Glacier by Freeze the Impreza. What was his full name in Discord? Freeze the Impreza Glaceon. Sorry, I think he likes Pokemon. This one's actually front-wheel drive. I was gonna say that, so unfortunately we're gonna have to disqualify this one. It didn't do particularly well anyway. I think that's the lowest score we've seen so far. So, unfortunately, where are you? There. EQ. And the score was 141.7. And as far as looks go, it's not bad, but yeah, I can see where you got your inspiration for this one. It's an alpha GTV. Not the most creative or unique design in my opinion. It gets a 4. It gets a 5 out of 10. And it doesn't matter anyway because it's disqualified. Oh man, I should have exported all of the cars after reviewing them. Next up, the Tirana Northis by Travik125. Okay, so this has a 2.3 liter Boxer 4 turbo with 266 horsepower. It scores only 148 points on the market, which is about the lowest we've seen. Looks-wise, I do like this. It has the same body as the last car we've seen, but it does look more unique. That is a fancy rear end. Lots of details, a bit of chrome, but not too much. Maybe the headlights are a little bit too modern, I think. But overall, a nice design. With the rims being chrome, I feel like the side is a little bit too plain, or you could add 1 or 2 things on the bonnet or stuff like that. So I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10. It's nice, but I think we've seen better. Next up, the Vox Griffin V12, which was by LeMan. 321 horsepower from a 5-liter V12, rear-wheel drive. 216.2 points in GT Premium. looks wise, I feel like this is more. This is pretty decent. It looks kind of early 90s-esque with this sort of you know, Audi headlight and grille arrangement that they had in the, I guess, late 80s and up to mid 90s or 2000s. The rear end is nice, but maybe a little simple. So is the side, very, very plain. Small little stripe going across, but gonna give this a 6 out of 10. And next up, the Volga Cyber 5. Cyber 5? Cyber. Okay. 6.7 liter V10 with 455 horsepower, 173 points in GT Premium. This one is by Random41, by the way. A name that we've seen a lot in these community challenges. Okay, now this is too futuristic for a 1980s car. It looks very, very sleek. The side could have a little bit more details, and so could, or the bonnet, like one or the other, I guess. And the rear end, I do like it, but the sort of quad exhaust in the middle do make it feel like, you know, it wants to be a Corvette as opposed to, you know, a more civilized and tame car. It looks more like a front-engine supercar than a true GT car, and it certainly has the sort of engine to back that up. I don't know. I like the look, but it's too modern. The front is too futuristic because, well, it would be. I got the same 300ZX headlights. A 300ZX did not have these headlights. I think the front headlights are only a few years early. The front comes from a Nissan Silvia, but certainly not an 85 Silvia. More like a 92 Silvia. That's the reflection. I mean, it's the S13 one, yeah, like early 90s. I'd give it a 7 overall. Yeah, I feel like I'd agree, because it looks good. It just, I don't know, there is one thing you can certainly argue for is the lack of details on the side, any sort of badging and stuff like that, and then the rear end looking too much like a supercar. You can argue for that as well, but overall it has a very nice and sleek look, so I'm gonna give it a 7. Next up, the Wall Maximus by Wall. Okay, so we have a 6.4 liter twin turbo V12 with 715 horsepower. And this right here, the significant issues with wheel spin that come with an engine like this in 1985, results in 134.2 points in GT Premium. Yeah, 0 to 100 in 5.6 seconds, which is fast for 1985, sure, but compared to other cars we're gonna see, this is probably not gonna be the fastest. Also, this is too modern. Anyone else with me on that one? And yeah, I mean the rear end is right, but the rear end is nice. I guess the wing is something you'd see in early 2000s Japanese cars and stuff, but the front just doesn't work. It would work in a modern car, but in 85, you know, that's. Yeah, overall, I think this is just not error correct. And as a result, I'm gonna give this a... Well, the rear end is nice, so I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. If I could just find it here. Next up we have the Electron B V12, and this one is by MK Mailer. So this is a 6.6 liter V12 with 310 horsepower, 232.2 score in GT Premium. I feel like the headlights are too small for this, or the main sort of kidney grills are a little too big. It does have pop-up headlights, but I feel like they're out of like this whole front arrangement above this chrome bumper. Everything above here is a little out of proportion. Either the pop-up headlights should be bigger, or these should be, you know, a little smaller. Or very well, these kidneys should be thinner in height. As it is, I don't like this this very much. I see the pop-ups, yeah, but the side is nice and sleek, and there's a very nice and accentuated chrome strip going across. The rear end, I guess this car doesn't have exhausts. Yeah, this car doesn't have exhausts. Okay. Doesn't have any sort of badging on the rear or on the side either. Or in the front for that matter. Overall, I mean, the rear end is decent. I do actually like that, but I really can't get around the... I'm sorry, I don't like the front. So I'm overall only gonna give this a 5 out of 10. Next up, the Griffin Royale. This is by Sedan 57 Chevy. 330 horsepower from a 5.8 liter V8. This looks very much like the exact capacity of the Ford Cleveland V8. This has 270.8 points in GT Premium. I do like this look. It looks very American, but very authentic for a sort of, you know, fast, long-distance traveler, which is effectively what a GT car is. I like the paint color and the chrome stripe going across. Yeah, the exhausts are missing here as well. The rear end, if it had any sort of badging either right in here or over here or something, I think that would add the little extra something. But it is good. I like it. I like the third brake light too. I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10 for the design. Well done. Last but not least, the HOS Prestige GT. And this one was by Hugo Oyon. 203, no, sorry, 197.9. Uh, 390 horsepower from a 6-liter V12. I do feel like this pulls the sort of look off with a small main grille and the or large main grille and small headlights, because these sort of line up with the chrome, like the middle chrome strip on the main grille. So I think this fits it decently well. The side is a little plain. The rear end could use a little bit more detail as well. It's very empty, like over here. Overall, I'd give this a 6 out of 10 for looks. And by the way, I just noticed. I think I was missing one car while going through everything, and it is the Arrowhead V12 by Krash Kan. So let's look for that. Where is it? Did I really not import it? Okay, let's import it right now. While we're gonna export these cars. I actually seem to have forgotten to import it to automation. So Arrowhead V12, there it is. Let's check. What? Oh, there it is. Oh yeah, we have looked at that. Have we not? Wait, I'm confused. This is what the Durand Runabout looked like. Is this the same car? Like, this can only happen. The fact that it changes the name and adding a trim to the model family, the only time that can happen is if it belongs to the same family of car. So, for example, you made a car, named it Arrowhead, and then exported it, and then later renamed it to something else and exported it again, then it'll do this. Then it'll do exactly this. Because we had a GT and a V12 and a V12 GTO on both cars as well. This looks very different though. 5.7 liter V12, 353.8 horsepower, 240.6. 240.6. Score. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about this, because as I said, the only time this happens is if you export this car, then create a clone, rename it, and then export it again, because the game sees that it's still the same car effectively, but you renamed it. So whichever one you import, whichever one I import last, that's the name it's gonna have in game. Yeah, the styling here, I'm not convinced. Let's just put it that way. Error correctness, I'd say somewhat, just not sort of, you know, type correctness, if you will. It looks more like a budget sports car than a high-end GT. And as a result of that, I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 10. Now, there is something I want to ask now. So Sebesseg, are you still here in the chat? Sebesseg, are you still here? Oh, you downloaded Arrow's car, and then you cloned it, and then you made this out of it. Apparently, you can still see the last few messages in the Discord channel. Or maybe it's a sort of bug where if you leave the community challenge files chat open and then someone submits while you have it open, you can see that as well. I think that's how that works. I do appreciate that you did in fact completely change the looks, and you would have. You know what? You did win the looks department. However, I'm not sure how to treat this sort of mechanically in terms of, you know, the overall score, because yours is better than his. But if you just take something to start out with and then do things to make it better, does that really count as your own, or is it sort of like a? I'll have chat decide. The looks are completely creative and unique, so I do count that. The question is mechanically, do we accept it or not? Is this also the same engine? Oh, it overrides the engine as well when you import back and forth. Okay. So this is going to be difficult. I mean, on the one hand, now this is the engine that the Arrowhead came in with. So I'm gonna, you know what? I've already exported this, or the Argon. Export that. What I'm gonna do? It changed everything, even the sort of suspension setup and stuff like that. Yes, Sebesseg had a higher GT Premium score with his own engine, and he actually has the highest score of all cars. The question now is how do we evaluate that, given the fact that he has effectively started out of this car, which did very well with a score of 240. And then swapped in another engine, and now he's got a top score. How do we deal with that, chat? How do you think? Unfair? DQ the score? Okay. Yeah, fair enough. You did still win on the looks department. So you are going to get the De Tomaso either way. Now what I'm gonna do is I have exported this. Now I'm gonna re-import Sebesseg's version because it's gonna have his own engine, and then I'm going to export that as well to BeamNG as a separate car. Now, which was the other car that we disqualified? The Storm cars, okay. So, with Sebesseg's car being disqualified, this means that Colonel Sanders is going to win the highest score category. Congratulations on that. Yeah, whatever. Okay, yeah, while I'm doing all this and exporting all these cars to BeamNG, what do you guys think? What was your favorite looking car? Will we see the chrome in BeamNG? I have no idea. Your favorite was the Griffin. Your own car, yeah. Obviously. Oh, the Vox Griffin, okay. That was the Condor? Yeah. So, Le Belge. Next up, the Aurora. Now, before we progress, I don't want to make any false accusations, so I just want to ask this to you, Sedan 57 Chevy. Do you happen to know the user called John French on Discord? He has a very similar profile picture to you and has a similar way of making cars to you in automation. So I'm just asking if there's anything you want to tell me. Never seen him on Discord. Yeah, me neither before this challenge. I can message them if you'd like. No, it's fine. It's just because I've had this sort of thing happening before, where one user would submit 2 cars to get a better chance of winning, and I did catch them at the time. So you know, I just want you guys to be honest with you. I completely understand if you if it's actually 2 legitimately different users. It's okay. Just I tried doing that before in the past. Yeah. Didn't wanna call you out. Yeah. Remember back when Automation signed the Steam account name onto the Car Expert? Yeah. I remember that. Okay, so it's none of that. So it's none of that again. Okay. Yeah, I believe you. That was the Vox and the Volga. The wall. And I'm actually not going to drive my own 1985 GT car in the in BeamNG, but I am going to drive the De Tomaso before we get into the entries, because I think it's actually really fun in Beam. So do we take bets on how much better Travik's car is going to handle now or later? The thing is, you know, on-track handling is not really what a GT car should be about, because usually that compromises the comfort. And as a result of the fact that comfort is extremely important for a GT car like this, it might be the one that's objectively handle or the one that can take corners the fastest, but it may not be the best sort of GT-like experience. If he tuned this car the way he tuned all his other cars. By the way, now that we've got 7 or 8 people in here, any suggestions for the next challenge? What should it be like, or what should it be? What sort of theme? Any ideas? Because I have an idea, but maybe I don't want to do it just yet. Mob boss car, huge trunk. I guess family premium. 2019 fashionable city cars. Yeah, sure, and make sure to make it pink or, you know, sky blue. Anyway, gonna switch over to Beam. Track day SUV. I'm sure you'd like another track day challenge, Travik. I can completely understand that. Okay, lots of cars in BeamNG right now. I will be going to the West Coast again. And I'm going to go to the yeah, I guess the industrial area. You know what? No, I'm gonna go here of no, Redwood Forest, I guess. Somewhere where it's bumpy. You know, I know that Jungle Rock Island is very bumpy. And no, not Jungle Rock Island. What was the other one? I don't remember. But I do want somewhere to go where you can also do a little bit of, you know, rolling acceleration tests. I think the best place to go is probably not here. The best place to go is probably industrial site. And I think if we go to Rallycross course, what, we can't just throw off the hill at 100 kilometers an hour and see how it lands. I mean, I do wanna do suspension tests as well, but like most roads in BeamNG are perfectly flat, right? So that's the reason why I did that as the suspension test in the past. That's why I did that, because there was basically no other option for me. Where is the Tommaso? There it is. But I think all the cars will will spin out in the dirt. I'm not gonna drive these very I'm not gonna drive these very much in the dirt. That was me being way late on the throttle for the drift there. But this is in fact very bumpy. But the reason I'm going here is because of this road right here. Oh, yeah, that was me. That was me. But this sounds really good, and it can yeah, I can turn up the in-game sounds. Better? Or a little bit more? I'm gonna start from here, by the way. Or should I turn it up a little bit more? Is it good? I literally just got to BeamNG, so I haven't driven anyone's car yet, but this De Tomaso Longchamp GTS. That was me hitting the rock there. Not because of the car. The car is incredible here, actually. Okay, that was me being idiotic here. Going across that too fast. And these corners are tight. Way tighter than I remember them being. So basically this route that you just saw me drive is what I'm gonna drive with all cars. For testing suspension. This, by the way, even though I didn't really optimize it that much, this felt really good. I softened it a little bit over the standard setting, but not really a whole lot of work went into it. So let's drive the Apogee. Let's try not spinning out. This has a lot of wheel spin. Also, the rear end is too stiff. Yeah, the rear end is too stiff. Very difficult to drive safely as well. This right here that you saw me do takes a lot of effort. Overall drivability, scary. can certainly be very fast if you tame it, but it's a handful. This is, by the way, just so I don't do anything wrong. Drifting isn't safe. I mean, you see, there's drifting this car, and there's drifting the De Tomaso that we just drove. The De Tomaso felt really, really gradual and predictable, whereas this is just like, you know, you even sniff at the throttle and boom, you're fully sideways. As a result of this being tricky to handle, I can't give this a very high drivability score. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. The Argon GDP V10. Quick, someone tell the Japanese. See, this one doesn't spin when you get off the line. Softer suspension than the car before. Okay, there I really tried to force this thing sideways, so that was on me. Because, for the most part, it sticks. See, even there I was able to maneuver away from that rock. So this is much more drivable for sure. I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10. I'm sure we'll see better than this, but this is certainly good. Nice job. Dampers seem a little too soft. Well, we're talking GT cars here, right? You can't make you can't make everything into a track monster, Travik. I mean, you can, but then it's just that, a track monster. Next, this is the Arrowhead V12. Oh, oops. This looks controllable. Certainly, I mean, maybe I could have gone down there faster. Wow, this is nice. Very nice, actually. I do prefer this to the last car even, so I'm gonna give this a 9. Oh, sorry, an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. This is very good. The Aurora GT. Is very quiet and has a manual transmission. And it understeers a lot. And yeah, it's too stiff. Especially on the rear, but No, here it understeers. Is this front-wheel drive? No. But anyway, this is this is not very drivable. I'm gonna give this a 2 out of 10. Sadly. Next up we have the Crockett GTP V16. Open diff, yeah, I think so too. You saw the line, the straight 11s. This thing just lay down, but it didn't spin out. It did it in a straight line as opposed to just spinning out immediately like the Apogee did. Despite its a very long wheelbase, this car does not seem very stable here at all. That may have been on me, this one, but overall the suspension does feel like it could use some more refinement. Maybe soften up the rear just a little bit. Okay, that one, I really felt like I should have had that. I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 10. We've had worse, but we've had better as well. Next up, the Durant Runabout. Now, this is the car that won the looks department. Very gentle off the line. And then turbo, okay. Certainly seems a lot stiffer here. It bounces around more than... Whoa. What? Okay, sorry. That may have been on me. I didn't mean to rip the right two wheels off, so let's try that again. Also, it feels like it likes to understeer into a corner. I'm not even sure what I hit there. Didn't see anything. But the rear end is too stiff on this one. You saw the rear bouncing quite a lot, like as a whole, not just the body. Like the wheels should keep contact with the ground, ideally. But if the rear end is too stiff, then the whole rear axle is gonna bounce up and down too much, and that's what this car did. So yeah, overall, I'm not convinced. I'm only gonna give this a 5 out of 10. Unfortunately, as good as it was to look, as good as it is to look at, and as good as the score was in automation, though we had to discount that one, but the drivability is okay, but not better than that. The Electron BV12. Let's check that out. This is actually not my favorite car to look at in automation, I think, but let's see how it drives. Again, tons of wheel spin off the line. And afterwards as well. looks better here, although also... Okay, now... Oh, now that was me just being a little bit of an idiot. Look, the pop-up headlight went up. Oh, so, no. It looked like the pop-up headlight went up from that angle, but I don't know if that's even possible. Like, if we turn on the headlights now, yeah, they don't pop up. Anyway, this feels like a little bit better than the last car, but certainly far from the top, so we're gonna give this a 6. This is the... what was it? The Electron, 6 out of 10. Next up, the Griffin Royale V8. Reach around headlights. Now that's some sound. I was actually on the throttle more than in any other car there, so it soaks up the bumps very well. Then I was being an idiot. Actually, there I was trying to be a little bit more careful and progressive, but it doesn't seem to like drifting very much. But still, like, as long as you're not trying to drift it around, and like as long as you're not being an idiot, this is very drivable. Certainly, as far as the suspension setup and the way it absorbs the bumps go, this is the best one yet. And if you only try to do a little bit of sideways action out of the corner as opposed to all the way through, it is also completely controllable. So only when you're trying to be an idiot is it a little hard to handle. And that is why this is also among the best, I think. Is it better than the Arrowhead V12? I don't know. It's I'm gonna set this at an 8 out of 10 for now as well. If we don't see a car that does better than this and the Arrowhead, which also got an 8, then I'll do a final test between these two again right here to try to decide. Obviously, if we see a car that gets a 9 out of 10, then that wins. But hey, Buick Roadmaster 50, how's it going? Whoa, very shaky. Oh, let's try that again. This is an extremely long first gear, actually. Yeah, this doesn't feel quite as stable as some of the other cars we've seen. And it doesn't like drifting either. So, Like, it doesn't kick sideways, it doesn't kick sideways, and then when it does, it's actually pretty hard to control and not spin. So overall drivability, I mean, we've had cars that were worse to control, so I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 10. If I could only remember, this was the HOS Prestige, I think. Yep, 5 out of 10. Condor LX 2000. It's right here. Lots of wheel spin in this one. Lots of understeer as well, apparently. Actually, not just lots of understeer, lots of oversteer as well when you go near the throttle. Too stiff on the rear. Okay, as long as you use quarter throttle, you can actually slide this around. No more than that though, because otherwise that happens. Okay, so this has understeer on the way into a corner and oversteer when you even look at the throttle. So not really the definition of a very drivable car. However, you can predict that the oversteer is going to come. So it's not awful, but it is, well, let's say 5 out of 10. The what was that? The Crockett. I gave that a 5 out of 10 in drivability. It was. I feel like the suspension was just not very well optimized. I feel like it should have handled the bumps much better with such a long wheelbase. It gives it a very big advantage normally, but it was a little off on the tuning there. Let's drive to La Belge Albert. Or Albert. Oh, let's lock the diff. Oh, it's a manual. Whoa. Have La Belge ever heard of corners? Because this, like, look at how slowly I'm driving. This understeers so much, and then when you even blink at the throttle, it's gonna oversteer. This is more extreme than the last car where I've said something similar, but it applies to this car much more than to the previous one. So this is actually difficult to handle. Ooh, well, I'm sorry, Brisket, but this one's not your best effort so far in terms of drivability, I'd say. Only gonna give this a 3 out of 10. This thing is actually giving me this thing is actually scary. Because coming into a corner, you have to fear that it's just gonna plow straight on unless you use throttle. But then the rear end is gonna kick out immediately, and very, very, very hard. So yeah, it's just a little difficult to handle. very difficult to handle. This was the, what was it? Marquez Aviator Sedici. Now this is the same body as the Crockett. So let's see if this handles these bumps any better. Very subtle so far. A little shaky there, but overall very good. Nice on that as well. Nice, I really like this one. Phew, here's the interesting part. I feel like this drives more... I don't... This is less aggressive in the handling than the Arrowhead and the Griffin Royale V8, both of which I've given an 8 out of 10 score. But as a result, this feels more progressive, more like a luxury car. Oh yeah, well that was me being an idiot, but ooh, hard to say. Very good car as well. Very, very good car. You know what? There is one more thing about the GT car that we need to test afterwards as well. And I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. Where is it? Wait, whose was this? There we go. 8 out of 10. There is one more thing we need to test, and I'm only going to test the top 5 cars on that. And that would be sort of like a rolling acceleration on the highway. Because obviously you want some of that as well on a GT car. The Fendt Blue is up next. Whoa, okay. Easy there. Thanks very much for following Buick Roadmaster 50. In the meantime, this... Oh my god. This, like... I realize that this makes me seem like a terrible driver, like what I've done with this car so far, but... Honestly, this... Just, you just never know what it's gonna do. Is it gonna oversteer? Is it gonna... You know, here it's very, very bouncy and very unstable. Certainly not... Certainly confirms the sort of impressions I had on the looks of this thing in automation, and that this is trying to be more of a front engine supercar than an actual GT car. Yeah, this is difficult to drive here anyway. So yeah, Need to head out. Data running out. Okay. See you around, Buick Roadmaster. Thanks for tuning in. This car moves more than a Cuban dancer working in Miami in a 1986 nightclub after 6 lines of coke and a couple fruity drinks. Yeah. Um, this gets a 2 out of 10. I'm sorry, but this does not drive the way that a GT car should. If this was a supercar challenge, we would be driving this on an actual track, and there it might be a lot better. But here it isn't, and so yeah. Tirana Norvis. Let's see. Let's see how this does. 2 out of 10, but 1 is the perfect score. Okay, I see very long gearing. I may have just been a little over ambitious there with the speeds. Wow. Okay, the rear end is way too stiff. Have I damaged anything, or is this still usable? I think it's still drivable. Yeah, even going as slowly as this, you can see the rear end bouncing way too much. There it actually understeered. Is this an open diff? Oh no, we just have a Boxer 4 turbo, so there's actually no torque. This is not as bad as I may have made it look, but it's far from the top in this sort of category. Again, if we were driving these cars on a track, this may have been brilliant. I'm pretty sure it would have been. But here, it's only a 5 out of 10. And I think we have a few more. The Vox Griffin V12. Feels very soft already. Yeah, this car is just big, like wide. I think I know that we've had two cars that were longer in wheelbase, but I think this is actually wider than those two, like the Crockett and the Marquez. I think this is actually wider, so that makes this narrow street kind of a pain. But look, it actually did absorb the bumps very nicely. It understeers a little bit too much into a corner, though. You can do this all day long. But the understeer into a corner is a little too much for my taste, so I'm only gonna give this a 7 out of 10 instead of an 8. But other than that, it is quite good. Then we have the Volga Cyber S. by random 41. Maybe I can do something here. Oh, it's a manual. It feels very quick. And keep in mind, while the revs feel like they're very low, we are actually going through here quite quickly compared to most other cars, and it did fine. Okay. I need to remember this has like an 8.5 liter V10. So I need to be careful with the throttle and with the... Spoke too soon. But don't get fooled by what I just did there. This is actually really good as well, but I feel like if this had not an 8.5 liter, but say a 7.5 liter or even 7 liter, this would have had a legitimate shot at the top. But I feel like it's just got too much torque for what it can handle. And that's why I'm gonna give this a 7, but it is really good. I kind of want to put this between 7 and 8, but I don't do half points, so... Ugh. What do we do in this case? I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10 with a sort of star as a marker to say like, okay, if we don't have anything that gets a 9 out of 10 now, or another 8, or well, yeah, if we don't get anything that gets a 9 out of 10 now, then this will be among the top 5, because it was better than the other 7 out of 10 entries. Oh, another manual. Hi, low life Max Camber, how's it going? This car, oh my goodness, it understeers so much, even in these slow speeds. Okay, now this is the last car, and this is certainly not a 9 out of 10. Very unstable and understeers too much. Okay, I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 10. And with that, we have tested all of these cars in like on this sort of road. I will now take the best 5 cars onto a little highway section somewhere else. And the Argon GDP V10 was the other one out of the 5th. Okay, so we have the 5 final cars. The, where is it? Argon GDP V10, the Arrowhead V12, the Marquez Aviator, the Griffin Royale V8, and the Volga Cyber S. Those 5. We are going to go, say, on West Coast. Gonna go to Redwood Forest, because from here you can You can get to a piece of highway rather easily. I don't know. Did you could do a mile drag race? It's a preset scenario. I know. I could do that. I know the Vox Griffin also got a 7 out of 10, but with the fact that I don't give out half points, unfortunately the Vox Griffin V12 was a 7 out of 10 car, but it was ever so slightly behind, in my opinion, the Volgars and the Argon, which also got a 7 out of 10. Again, I know that this sounds stupid, but I probably need a different scaling system with half points, perhaps. But the top 5 cars are gonna be going up now. Or let's do the mile drag race. Yeah, sure, why not? West Coast, already selected up there. Highway strip. Select vehicle. Here we go. This exactly, these toll barriers at the start is exactly why I hate this highway drag race, because with rear-wheel drive cars, it slows you down so much having to actually, you know, control the wheel spin and go through these toll booths. With an all-wheel drive car, usually, you know, because all-wheel drive launches very easily, usually it's no problem with those, but 34.6 is certainly a respectable score. Arrowhead V12, let's see. Okay, there we are. I'm curious to know what are your PC specs. I've got an AMD Ryzen 7 2700X, 32 gigabytes of RAM from G-Skill at 3000 megahertz, and I've got a Radeon RX Vega 56. Thirty-four, 34.9. Okay, a little bit slower than the Argon. Probably because of more wheel spin off the line, but not gonna do this again. So next car is the Griffin Royale. You missed the little keypads I put in above the door in the Griffin. Above the door handle. Ah, yeah, right. Sorry. Right there. Sketchy start there, but good old trusty V8 pulling hard. Thirty-four, 35.3. That puts it in last place for now, unfortunately. What was up next? The Marquez. And then we also have the Volga Cyber. Yeah. I don't know how this car manages to take off so gently and yet effectively with this massive V12 under the bonnet and rear-wheel drive. I don't know how it's so stable even when spinning its wheels. It's not all-wheel drive, by the way. But here on the top end, it is starting to slow down somewhat. Here, the aero is also coming into play. 36.2. And the Volga Cyber. Extra weight, maybe better weight distribution as well, I don't know. Oh, sorry, I forgot this was a manual. Yeah, so I can't like try to full throttle this until the, oof. Need to slow down a bit. Does actually feel fast though. I feel like this may have a shot. .4, I think that's the fastest. Yeah, it's the fastest by quite a bit actually. So now what? Now these results have me confused because the Volga Cyber was sort of like a 7.5 out of 10 in drivability on the road, but I don't give out half points, so it was a 7. The Argon got a 7, the Arrowhead got an 8, the Griffin got an 8, and the Marquez got an 8. So the 3 bottom cars got an 8, and the 2 on the top got a 7. So what do I do now? The Volga Cyber was the best car out of the best 7 out of 10 car, and it's the fastest here. But I really like the way that the Arrowhead handled, and the Griffin, and the Marquez. Yeah, like these three handled so damn well, and handled especially the bumps very well. You could do a road track test. I think the Marquez is out because it's too slow. I think that's fair. It's nearly a second behind the second slowest car. But between the other four, it's really hard to decide. So as far as drivability goes, and since I value drivability more in a GT car than flat out speed, I think the Arrowhead is going to take it, because out of the 8 of 10, because out of the cars that got 8 out of 10 drivability, it is the fastest. And by the way, just for fun, I'm also gonna, and also to have a benchmark, I'm gonna run the Tommaso here as well. I expect this to probably come last, but because it's simply the least powerful here, I think. But anyway, I think the Arrowhead is going to take it, because it was my I think all in all my favorite on the road. Close, but at the very least up there. And it, out of the 8 out of 10 drivability cars, here it was the fastest. Yeah, this is slower than all of the other cars. But it is a replica. It is a replication of a real car. And the real car only made 290 horsepower and not, 400. 38.2. Yeah. So overall winner is going to be the Arrowhead V12 on the Beam, as far as BeamNG goes. Okay, so I will be contacting Krash Kan, Colonel Sanders, and Sebesseg on Discord and send the file for this De Tomaso Longchamp over. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I will be ending it now. There will be another community challenge next week, and I hope you guys are looking forward to that. Until then, thank you very much for watching the VOD. The VOD is going to be going up tomorrow in case you missed any part of this stream. And until next week, have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.